Imagine harvesting baskets of fresh vegetables without ever digging up a traditional garden bed. No endless digging, no large raised beds, and no need for a huge backyard. With just a few containers, quality potting mix, plenty of sunshine, and the right vegetables, you can grow an impressive amount of fresh food almost anywhere. That's the beauty of container gardening. Whether you have a small balcony, patio, front porch, or even a sunny windowsill, you can turn that space into a productive vegetable garden. In fact, many vegetables thrive in containers because it's easier to control soil quality, drainage, watering, and overall growing conditions. In today's video, we'll share 7 vegetables that consistently perform exceptionally well in containers. They're productive, beginner-friendly, easy to maintain, and capable of producing generous harvests even in the smallest spaces. Let's get started. 1. Tomatoes, the ultimate vegetable for container gardening. Few moments in gardening are as satisfying as picking a perfectly ripe tomato that you've grown with your own hands. The flavor of a homegrown tomato is noticeably sweeter, richer, and far more complex than what you'll usually find at the grocery store. Tomatoes allowed to ripen naturally on the vine under the warmth of the sun develop an incredible taste that commercially grown varieties rarely achieve. Even better, you don't need a spacious backyard to enjoy that experience. Tomatoes are among the easiest vegetables to grow in containers because pots make it simple to provide exactly the growing conditions they need. You can fill the container with rich, fertile soil, keep moisture levels consistent, and position the plant wherever it will receive the greatest amount of sunlight throughout the day. Choosing the right variety is one of the most important decisions. Large, indeterminate tomatoes continue growing throughout the season and often become too large for small containers, making them more difficult to maintain. Compact, determinate varieties and bush tomatoes are usually much better suited for container gardens because they stay manageable while still producing generous harvests. Excellent choices include Patio Princess, Tiny Tim, Roma, and Better Bush, all of which were specifically developed to perform well in limited growing spaces while producing an abundance of flavorful fruit. Tomatoes also appreciate having plenty of room for their root systems. Most gardeners recommend using containers that hold at least 5 gallons of potting mix, although larger pots usually produce even healthier plants and heavier harvests. Bigger containers retain moisture longer, reduce stress during hot weather, and provide a more stable environment for root growth. Proper drainage is equally essential since tomatoes dislike sitting in soggy soil. Every container should include several drainage holes that allow excess water to escape easily after watering. Instead of using ordinary garden soil, fill the pot with a high-quality potting mix that remains loose, light, and well aerated. This allows roots to spread freely while maintaining excellent drainage. Before planting, blend compost together with a slow-release organic fertilizer to supply the nutrients tomatoes require throughout the growing season. Since tomatoes are heavy feeders, providing a steady source of nutrition helps support vigorous growth and continuous fruit production. Sunshine is another key ingredient for success. Tomatoes perform best when they receive between 6 and 8 hours of direct sunlight every day. Gardeners growing indoors can also achieve excellent results by using grow lights for approximately 12 to 14 hours daily, ensuring the plants receive enough light to remain healthy and productive. Consistent watering is just as important as proper lighting. Allowing the soil to swing between extremely dry and overly wet conditions can lead to problems such as blossom end rot, cracked fruit, and unnecessary stress on the plants. Applying mulch around the base of the plant or using self-watering containers helps maintain more even soil moisture, especially during periods of intense summer heat. As the plants become larger, removing the lower leaves improves airflow around the stems and helps reduce the risk of fungal diseases. Installing cages or sturdy stakes early in the season provides valuable support before the branches become weighed down with heavy clusters of tomatoes. Many gardeners also enjoy growing basil nearby because it makes an excellent culinary companion, may discourage certain insect pests, and has long been believed to improve the flavor of nearby tomatoes. Once the harvest begins, it's easy to understand why tomatoes remain the most popular vegetable for container gardening. There is something truly special about walking onto your patio or balcony and picking fresh, sun-ripened tomatoes directly from a single container only moments before bringing them into your kitchen. 2. Peppers, compact plants that produce incredible harvests. Although tomatoes often receive the spotlight in container gardens, peppers deserve just as much attention. Their compact size, colorful fruits, attractive appearance, and remarkable productivity make them one of the very best vegetables for growing in pots. Whether you prefer sweet bell peppers, mildly spicy banana peppers, fiery jalapenos, or ornamental varieties that produce brilliant shades of red, yellow, orange, and purple, peppers add both beauty and practical value to even the smallest growing spaces. One of the reasons peppers thrive so well in containers is their love of warmth. Pots warm up more quickly than traditional garden beds, creating the warm root environment that peppers naturally prefer. Combined with well-draining soil, these warmer conditions often lead to healthier plants, stronger growth, and larger harvests. Compact pepper varieties are especially suitable for patios, balconies, decks, and other limited spaces. Popular container-friendly choices include Baby Bell, Redskin, Gypsy, Jalapeno M, and Hot Portugal. Whether you choose sweet or hot varieties, nearly all peppers share the same basic growing requirements, including abundant sunshine, warm temperatures, and evenly moist soil. Most pepper plants perform exceptionally well in containers, holding between 3 and 5 gallons of potting mix. Many gardeners enjoy using terracotta pots because their porous sides allow additional airflow around the roots, although these containers tend to dry out more rapidly during hot weather and may require more frequent watering. Fill the container with a lightweight, well-draining potting mix enriched with compost rather than heavy garden soil, which may compact over time and restrict healthy root growth. When transplanting seedlings, planting them slightly deeper than they were growing previously often encourages stronger root development and sturdier stems. Regular fertilizing throughout the season also helps maximize productivity. Balanced organic fertilizers support healthy vegetative growth early in the season, while fertilizers containing slightly higher levels of phosphorus and potassium encourage heavier flowering and improved fruit production once blooming begins. Peppers flourish in warm, sunny locations where they receive 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight each day. Placing containers near brick walls, patios, or other heat-retaining surfaces can further improve production because those surfaces reflect additional warmth back toward the plants. Nighttime temperatures between 60 and 70 degrees Fahrenheit are generally ideal for successful fruit development. If temperatures become too cool, flowers may fail to develop into peppers, reducing overall yields. Gardeners living in cooler climates often move containers indoors during chilly evenings to maintain more favorable growing conditions. Peppers prefer consistently moist soil but dislike constantly saturated roots. Water thoroughly whenever the top inch of soil begins drying out, while allowing excess moisture to drain away completely. Applying mulch around the base of the plants helps preserve moisture while keeping root temperatures more stable during hot weather. Gardeners growing peppers indoors or on sheltered balconies can improve pollination by gently shaking flowering branches every few days, helping pollen move between blossoms. Some experienced growers also remove the earliest flowers that appear, allowing young plants to devote more energy toward developing stronger roots before beginning heavy fruit production. Although this slightly delays the first harvest, it often leads to significantly greater yields later in the season. One of the wonderful features of peppers is that they can be harvested at several different stages of maturity. Green peppers offer a fresh, crisp texture and a milder flavor, while fruits left to fully ripen develop deeper colors, greater sweetness, and higher nutritional value. Hot peppers also become noticeably more intense as they mature. Harvesting peppers regularly encourages plants to continue flowering and producing new fruits over an extended period. A single healthy pepper plant growing in one container is often capable of producing dozens of peppers throughout the season. Combining ornamental beauty, manageable size, continuous production, and exceptional versatility, peppers easily earn their place among the finest vegetables for container gardening. 3. Lettuce and leafy greens. Quick harvest from small spaces. If you want vegetables that reward you almost immediately, leafy greens are hard to beat. They germinate quickly, require very little room, and can provide fresh harvests only a few weeks after sowing. That makes them one of the easiest and most satisfying choices for beginning gardeners. One of the biggest reasons lettuce and other greens perform so well in containers is their shallow root systems. Unlike larger vegetables that need deep soil, leafy greens are perfectly happy growing in window boxes, shallow planters, wooden boxes, or even recycled containers. With only a small amount of space, you can grow an impressive supply of fresh vegetables right outside your door. Another advantage is that these crops actually prefer cooler weather. While tomatoes and peppers flourish during the hottest months of summer, lettuce, spinach, and similar greens often grow best during the milder temperatures of spring and fall. Mixing several varieties together creates a more colorful and interesting harvest. Buttercrunch lettuce produces soft, tender leaves with a mild flavor, while romaine adds crisp texture and structure to salads. Red leaf lettuce contributes vibrant color along with a slightly sweet taste, and mesclun blends remain especially popular because they contain several different greens that continue producing after repeated harvests. Beyond lettuce, containers are also excellent for growing spinach, arugula, kale, and Swiss chard, all of which provide nutritious leaves over an extended season. Unlike fruit-producing vegetables, leafy greens don't demand full-day sunshine. 4 to 6 hours of direct sunlight is usually sufficient for healthy growth, making them ideal for patios, balconies, and locations that receive only partial sun throughout the day. Wide containers measuring roughly 6 to 8 inches deep generally provide all the root space these vegetables require. Fill them with fertile potting mix enriched with compost, and always make sure excess water can drain away freely. Consistent moisture is one of the keys to producing tender, flavorful leaves. If the soil dries out too much, greens often become bitter, tougher in texture, and less productive. Water regularly, especially during warm weather, keeping the soil evenly moist rather than allowing it to fluctuate between extremely dry and saturated conditions. Feeding occasionally with diluted organic fertilizer or compost tea will encourage vigorous growth while improving both yield and flavor. One of the greatest advantages of growing leafy vegetables is the cut-and-come-again harvesting method. Instead of pulling up the entire plant, simply remove the outer leaves and leave the growing center untouched. The plant responds by producing new leaves continuously for many weeks, giving you multiple harvests from the same container. Even just a few pots can supply a family with fresh salad greens throughout much of the growing season. Many gardeners also plant herbs such as parsley, dill, or chives alongside their greens, since these companion plants may discourage certain pests while adding extra flavor and variety to the garden. With only a handful of seeds in several containers, you can enjoy a dependable supply of crisp, nutritious greens just steps from your kitchen. 4. Potatoes. Discovering hidden harvests beneath the soil. While leafy greens offer almost instant gratification, potatoes provide an entirely different kind of excitement. Instead of watching the harvest develop above ground, potatoes quietly grow where you can't see them. As the stems and leaves flourish overhead, clusters of tubers slowly expand beneath the surface, remaining completely hidden until harvest day finally arrives. That's when container gardening becomes especially rewarding. Emptying a container and searching through the soil feels almost like digging for buried treasure. One by one, smooth potatoes in shades of gold, red, white, or purple appear from the earth where only green foliage was visible before. Potatoes are exceptionally well suited for containers, and many gardeners actually find them easier to grow in pots than in traditional garden beds, particularly when outdoor space is limited. Rather than spreading across the ground, potatoes grow vertically, making deep containers, grow bags, buckets, or specially designed potato planters excellent choices. For the best results, select a container at least 12 to 16 inches deep with several drainage holes to prevent excess moisture from collecting. Whenever possible, start with certified seed potatoes instead of grocery store potatoes because they are produced specifically for planting and are far less likely to carry diseases or chemicals that interfere with sprouting. Larger seed potatoes can be cut into smaller sections as long as each piece contains at least one healthy eye. Allow the freshly cut surfaces to dry for a day before planting to reduce the risk of rot. Begin by placing several inches of loose, nutrient-rich potting mix or compost in the bottom of the container. Arrange the seed potatoes with the eyes facing upward and cover them with additional soil. As green shoots begin emerging and grow taller, continue adding more soil or straw around the stems. This process, known as hilling, is essential because potatoes develop along the buried portions of the stem. Every layer of added soil creates additional space where new tubers can form, gradually building an underground tower of potatoes throughout the season. Potatoes prefer evenly moist soil but never waterlogged conditions. Excessive moisture encourages rot and disease, making proper drainage extremely important. Water whenever the top layer of soil begins drying out, increasing the frequency during periods of hot weather if necessary. Fertilizers containing higher levels of phosphorus and potassium encourage strong tuber formation, while excessive nitrogen often produces lush foliage with fewer potatoes underground. Most varieties also require 6 to 8 hours of sunlight each day, although gardeners in especially hot climates often protect containers from intense afternoon heat to keep the root zone cooler. Once flowering begins, you can carefully harvest small, tender new potatoes without disturbing the rest of the crop. For mature potatoes, wait until the foliage naturally turns yellow and dies back before stopping irrigation for approximately 2 weeks. This resting period allows the skins to toughen, making the potatoes much better for long-term storage. Then comes the most enjoyable moment of all. Tip over the container and gently sift through the soil as beautiful potatoes emerge one after another from beneath the surface. Under favorable growing conditions, a single container can produce several pounds of delicious potatoes. After enjoying the flavor of freshly harvested homegrown potatoes, supermarket potatoes often seem far less impressive. 5. Carrots and root vegetables, hidden crops with incredible flavor. When most people picture a container garden, they usually imagine tomatoes, herbs, or peppers growing above the soil. Yet many of the most satisfying vegetables spend nearly their entire lives developing underground. Carrots, beets, radishes, and other root crops quietly build their edible roots below the surface, while their leafy tops collect sunlight overhead. Then, when harvest time arrives, a simple pull from the soil reveals brightly colored vegetables with crisp texture and exceptional flavor that are often far superior to store-bought produce. Freshly harvested root vegetables possess a sweetness and freshness that's difficult to duplicate any other way. Many of these crops actually prefer growing in containers because they thrive in loose, stone-free soil where roots can expand without obstruction. Containers allow gardeners to create ideal growing conditions without worrying about rocks, compacted soil, weeds, or competition from neighboring plants. Since root vegetables remain relatively compact and don't require supports or insect pollination, they fit perfectly into patios, balconies, and other small gardening spaces. When choosing containers, depth matters much more than width. Carrots and beets usually perform best in containers 10 to 12 inches deep, while radishes are perfectly happy with only 6 to 8 inches of soil. Deep planters, grow bags, buckets, and window boxes can all produce excellent results provided they drain well. A lightweight potting mix enriched with compost creates an ideal growing environment, and many gardeners also mix in coarse sand or perlite to improve aeration and drainage. Heavy, compacted soil often causes roots to become twisted, forked, or undersized, while loose soil encourages long, smooth, well-shaped vegetables. Unlike many other crops, root vegetables generally dislike transplanting, so seeds should always be sown directly into the container where they will mature. Most varieties require only shallow planting, usually about 1/4 inch deep. During germination, keep the soil consistently moist. Carrot seeds require patience and may take up to 2 weeks before seedlings finally emerge. Once the young plants appear, thinning becomes one of the most important maintenance tasks. Although removing extra seedlings may seem wasteful, overcrowding prevents roots from developing properly. Giving each plant enough room allows every root to grow to its full size beneath the soil. Compact varieties are especially well suited for containers. Carrots such as Thumbelina, Paris Market, and Little Finger mature quickly while growing beautifully in shallower pots. Radishes rank among the fastest vegetables you can grow, often reaching harvest size in only 3 or 4 weeks, making them perfect for beginners and young gardeners alike. Beets require a little more patience, but reward growers with 2 harvests from one plant, producing both nutritious leafy greens and sweet underground roots. Consistent watering is essential for producing high-quality root vegetables. If the soil dries out repeatedly, roots may become woody, cracked, or bitter. Gentle, regular watering keeps moisture levels even, while protecting delicate developing roots. Radishes are usually best harvested promptly once they reach full size because older roots often become hollow or excessively spicy. Carrots and beets are generally ready when the tops of their roots begin pushing slightly above the soil surface. Harvesting these vegetables is always deeply satisfying because each pull reveals a perfectly formed crop that has been quietly growing out of sight for weeks. Root vegetables remind every gardener that some of nature's greatest rewards develop beneath the surface, hidden until the perfect moment. 6. Bush beans, compact plants that produce surprisingly large harvests. Now let's turn our attention from vegetables growing beneath the soil to one of the simplest and most productive crops you can grow above ground: bush beans. If you're looking for a vegetable that stays compact while producing generous harvests, bush beans are an outstanding choice. They grow rapidly, require very little attention, and reward gardeners with an abundance of crisp, flavorful pods, even when grown in a single container. In just a few short weeks, an ordinary pot sitting on a patio, balcony, or porch can become filled with healthy plants covered in fresh beans. One of the biggest advantages of bush beans is that they naturally maintain a tidy, compact shape. Unlike pole beans, which require tall trellises or other vertical supports, bush varieties remain self-supporting throughout the season. Most plants reach no more than 2 feet in height, making them perfect for gardeners working with limited space. Their fast growth is another reason they are so popular. Many varieties begin producing harvestable pods only 50 to 60 days after planting and continue developing new beans for many weeks with proper care. Bush beans grow best in containers approximately 12 to 14 inches deep, giving their roots enough room to spread comfortably. As with most vegetables, good drainage is essential because constantly wet soil can lead to unhealthy roots and reduced harvests. Fill the container with a rich, well-draining potting mix, enhanced with compost to provide a steady supply of nutrients throughout the growing season. Avoid applying fertilizers that contain excessive amounts of nitrogen, since they often encourage lush, leafy growth while reducing the number of beans the plants produce. Bush beans are best grown by sowing seeds directly into their final container, rather than transplanting seedlings. Plant each seed about 1 inch deep, leaving several inches of space between them so each plant has enough room to develop properly. Once the soil has warmed, germination usually happens quickly, and young seedlings often emerge within a week. Like many productive vegetables, bush beans perform best in full sunlight. Providing 6 to 8 hours of direct sun each day encourages vigorous growth and abundant pod production. Water deeply enough to thoroughly soak the root zone while allowing excess moisture to drain freely from the container. Maintaining consistent soil moisture is important because extended dry periods can cause flowers and developing pods to drop before they mature. During especially hot weather, applying a layer of mulch around the plants helps conserve moisture while keeping the root system cooler and more stable. One reason bush beans are such dependable producers is that they are self-pollinating. Unlike some vegetables that depend heavily on insects for successful fruit production, bush beans can develop pods without much outside assistance. Even so, visits from bees and gentle air circulation can improve pollination and often lead to even heavier harvests. Small blossoms appear first, and before long they develop into tiny bean pods that grow surprisingly fast. One of the most satisfying aspects of growing bush beans is watching how productive they become over time. Regular harvesting encourages the plants to continue flowering and setting new pods, meaning the more beans you pick, the more the plants often produce. Several varieties are especially well suited for container gardening, including Provider, Bush Blue Lake, and Contender, all of which have earned reputations for reliability, strong yields, and excellent flavor. Gardeners looking to add more color to their harvest may also enjoy growing yellow wax beans or beautiful purple potted varieties that stand out in both the garden and the kitchen. Bush beans offer another valuable benefit beyond their generous harvests. As members of the legume family, they form partnerships with beneficial soil bacteria that capture nitrogen from the air and store it within the root zone. This natural process helps enrich the surrounding soil instead of depleting it. At the end of the season, many experienced gardeners simply cut the plants off at ground level while leaving the roots undisturbed in the container. As those roots gradually break down, they release valuable nitrogen back into the growing medium, improving fertility for whatever crop is planted next. In other words, bush beans not only provide delicious food for your table, but also help nourish the soil for future harvests. Harvesting is both simple and rewarding. Pick the pods regularly while they remain young, tender, and crisp for the very best flavor and texture. Fresh beans harvested only moments before cooking are noticeably sweeter, juicier, and more flavorful than most store-bought alternatives. Considering their compact size, bush beans offer an impressive combination of continuous production, easy care, natural soil improvement, and generous harvests, making them one of the finest vegetables you can grow in a single container.